everyone, welcome to another Fairy Tail Fierce Fight video. In today's video, I'm gonna do a bit of a review on Jose, going through all of his attack, his kit, his skills, etc. His passive, just to tell you some of my thoughts on whether I think he's gonna be a good character or not. Now, I am recording this video early because I will be on holiday next week, so I won't be creating any content at all. And my suspicion is that Jose will be the new banner next week because he's the only one left in the gallery right now that's not already in the game. So if they're going to do a new character, it's pretty much going to be Jose, to be honest. But maybe they will do a rerun of one of the older characters. I don't know. But just in case they will be releasing Jose, I want to at least get this video out so you guys know in advance on whether I think he's going to be a good character or not. Now, if we take a look at all his skills, if we just go into this preview section, first thing I want to bring your attention is every 5 seconds the enemy is going to take some damage. Like now, you'll see like the damage 2 be applied to all of the enemies. That's from his leadership skill, which I'll go through later, so don't worry about that yet. If we start with normal attack, you can see it's a long range normal attack, which is always going to be good. If we take a look at skill 1, you can see the skill 1 has a shorter range than his normal attack, so just pay special attention into that. Even though your normal attack can hit from quite far, or a lot of the other skills do require you to be somewhat closer to the enemy, so just be mindful of that. If we actually take a description of the skill 1, it doesn't say much, but just hitting small range, which we kind of already know, right? It's a shorter range than normal attack. But the other thing it kind of failed to mention is that it's actually able to push back the enemies slightly, not by much, just ever so slightly. If you take a look at those 3 enemies and take a look at the floor marking they're standing on currently, if I actually do skill 1, what you see is the enemy do get pushed back. It's really obvious here, right? Because my attack didn't hit the enemy on the right, and you can see the enemy on the right is not getting pushed back, but the 2 on the left is getting pushed back. So that's basically something you do want to pay attention to. Then if we take a look at his skill 2, once again, it doesn't say much. It says it just hit a straight line in front, so it's somewhat narrow range. Like it can hit quite far back, but it's pretty narrow, and it's able to apply a debuff for 12 seconds, which reduce enemy attack. The cooldown for the skill itself is actually 20 seconds, if I remember correctly. So that's pretty long, right? 12-second debuff is pretty long, and considering the attack itself is only 20-second cooldown duration, that basically means that half of the time in the battle, the enemy will be under this attack reduction debuff, which is nice. Now, if we take a look at his animation for skill 2, you'll be noticing the enemy once again get pushed back ever so slightly. So if you take a look here, right, you can see I have 2 enemy on the left, which are a bit further back than the one on the right. And if I do my skill 2, hitting this one, you can see I am moving him ever so slightly back into the same level as the other 2. It's only a tiny movement, like a smaller movement margin than your skill 1, but it's definitely able to do it. And the other thing you probably notice is that Jose actually step forward when he do that, so you actually close in on the gap to the enemy. For example, you can see here, right? I actually have a really big distance away from the enemy right now, but if I keep on using skill 2, right? If I keep on doing this, I'm actually moving closer and closer to the enemy. Now, in actual battle, you probably wouldn't notice this much because you can only use this skill once every 20 seconds. It's just really obvious in this preview mode because you can use it consecutively. But yeah, do pay attention into this. Even though his normal attack is long range, a lot of his shorter attack either have a lot of his other skills either have a shorter range or actually move you closer to the enemy. So that's something you want to be mindful of. Then if we take a look at skill 3, another attack, which sounds very cool in theory, but just I feel like it's a really bad design. But basically what happens is it teleports rapidly and then kind of attack the enemy from the back. So for example, if I stand close to the enemy, right, what you're going to see is he moves left, right, and then appear at the back and then do the hit. Now that sounds really cool. I think it can work in PvP because what happens is that it's very similar to Midnight because the fact that he disappear or he kind of teleport around, either the enemy is not able to attack you or the enemy will be firing an attack at the direction where you were standing rather than where you are currently or where you are going to be, and therefore making you able to dodge the enemy attack. So I do feel like it's quite cool from that perspective. But the really stupid thing about this one is that it has a really short range. So I think you'll be missing it a lot. You just look really stupid when you miss it, to be honest. Um, For example, if I stand at this distance, I can hit with my normal attack, right? I can hit with my normal attack, no problem. If I use my skill 3, I end up hitting no one because it doesn't actually automatically zone in on the enemy. You just do a left, right, step forward and hit backwards kind of motion. You don't actually teleport next to the enemy, unlike what the skill description says. So this basically means you could be end up missing a lot. And yeah, if you do this, you just look really stupid. You end up hitting no one and you fire an attack backwards, right? So I'm not personally a fan of his skill 3. And then if we take a look at his skill 4, this is definitely his signature skill. Basically what's going to happen is that he's going to summon a Dark Sphere, which is going to do basic attack every single second. I will do a comparison on this attack damage later on because to me this sounds absolutely stupid amount of attack. Because if it actually just take a look at now, this is at level 12. What this is able to do is 80% scaling or 83% scaling per second for 25 seconds. If you multiply those two numbers together, that is going to be a 2000% scaling, which is insane. That's so much higher than any other attack. I will show you my Luxus later for comparison, but all other characters do like 300 attack scaling, whereas this one's able to do 2000, which is absolutely crazy. But let's take a look at animation first. So I think the first thing I want to show you is that if I stand at a range which is far enough to still hit with normal attack, let me try the enemies on the left hand side. So here, for example, I can still hit the enemy with my normal attack. If I actually summon my Dark Sphere, you can see I can hit them as well. If I stand back slightly, what you can see is the energy ball do follow you. So basically, this energy ball have more or less the same range as your normal attack, and it kind of follows you around. And basically, what that means is that if you want this energy ball, actually, let me see, the energy ball is not able to hit the enemy from this range, but I can still hit with my normal attack. But that's because the energy ball is behind me. So I do have a feeling the energy ball have the same range as you. It's just going to be depending on where is the energy ball going to be standing. If it's standing, for example, at the same place as you, then I think you can hit. But if it's actually behind you, then you won't actually be even making an attack. So that basically means that if you do want this to passively do damage to the enemies, you can't be too far away from the enemy in the first place. So do not think you can just summon an energy ball and run really, really far away from the enemy and you still do damage or chip damage to them over time. It doesn't quite work like that. Like if you have to waste time for this energy ball to do damage, my suggestion is that you don't run away from the enemy, but instead you run in a circle around the enemy. Because if you actually run a circle around the enemy, what you will notice is the energy ball doesn't actually move too much, and you'll be actually able to consistently hitting the enemy throughout, and you are hopefully able to dodge enemy attacks by kind of running around them as well. So this is going to be my recommendation, but definitely don't run like too far away from the enemy because the energy ball will just follow you and not do anything. Okay, so that's something to bear in mind. The other advantage this energy ball have is that I have seen this when I face up against Jose as a boss in Tower Heaven before. But even when Jose is under control, this energy ball will still be attacking constantly. So that basically means Jose can actually effectively be using a stall team because he also has his leadership skill, right? Remember, I mentioned at the start, every 5 seconds he do some damage to the enemies. If I take a look at leadership skill, I do like 7% magic attack damage every 5 seconds to all of the enemy, and this is only at level 1, and it's already like 7% scaling. So this can get actually quite high as well as you max out the skill. Basically, that means Jose can potentially work in Stone Team because there are actually enough ways for Jose to do damage over time, even if he's being controlled or potentially even when he's killed off. I'm not actually sure if he's killed off, would the energy ball just disappear straight away, or would the energy ball still be there and kind of just still doing chip damage till the end of the 20 seconds? So that's potentially something you need to check yourself if you do have Jose and end up summoning on him. Um, but the other thing I did want to show, right, the attack scaling. So I did mention at the highest level of his skill, that's like 2000% scaling. If you take a look at my Luxus for comparison, Loxus have an attack, ultimate attack, which is 300% scaling. There's a fixed damage of 2700, but if you take a look at how much attack stats my Loxus have, then you will realize that 2700 is only like 20% of your attack stat. So that in total is still only like 324%, which is nothing compared to the 2000 that Jose is able to do. So Jose's skill for just absolutely busted. Like unless I made a mistake somewhere, and if I did, please do correct me in the comment section. But if my understanding is correct, this is going to be the highest damage dealing character full stop in the game right now. So, absolutely crazy amount of damage. Then if we take a look at his other passive skill, basically whenever he's skillful, he's going to get a buff. I'm not sure what's the buff at the highest level, but if you're able to get 4% at level 1, I'm going to guess at level 10, you're probably talking about at least 20 or possibly 30%. And because it lasts for 35 seconds, and the skill cooldown itself is only 30 seconds, that basically means you'll be getting at least one stack of the buff for the entire period of the battle. So that's going to be nice. Then if we look at Ether Nano passive, so that's what you get at 6 star. At level 1, you just get enhanced HP, nothing much to talk about. But level 2 and level 3 are pretty good. You're able to increase the duration by 5 seconds. Now, if you take a look at the base duration, it's 20 seconds. So a 5-second increase, that's like a 25% relative increase. So that's really nice. And then you take a look at the other one, which is increasing attacking speed by 30%. And if you take a note, one is increasing duration, one is increasing by attacking speed. So that basically means the relationship between the two buffs should be multiplicative rather than addition. So rather than like 25% increase plus 30% increase, it should be more like 1.25 times by 1.3. And that basically gives you like 60% increase in total, I think, in terms of your damage output. So that's going to be really, really strong as well. I don't think it's must have because I do feel like he already have insane amount of damage even without East Nano passive because this is like 2000% scaling, right? This is already insane without that buff. But at the same time, you could also argue the buff itself is 60% on something which can do 2000% scaling. So the increase is also going to be massive. So that's also something you do have to pay attention to. But personally, I think like Jose can potentially be built quite budgety. I think like even at 4 star, Jose will be able to do enough damage output to make him stand out in comparison to other DPS. Okay, so is Jose actually good enough for you to summon him on? I think he is possibly one of the best unit in the game, purely because of his skill 4. His skill 1 to 3 are absolutely average, like pretty lackluster to be honest. Other than this debuff from skill 2, none of the other attacks even do much. There's also no control immunity built in for Jose, so I feel like Jose could even be interrupted when he uses skill 4. So maybe you need to either bring like a magic gear or maybe have Hot Eye as the leader just to benefit from a bit of control immunity so that he can actually pull off his skill 4. But as soon as he releases skill 4, he's gonna be like the most busted unit in this game to date. So I think purely evaluating on skill 4, that alone is enough to make him like a top tier unit worth summoning for. I also think he's gonna be brilliant both in PvP and also in PvE. PvE is really simple, right? Because you can do damage to them while still running around in a circle when you're controlling him manually. So in PvE, Jose is immediately going to be a top tier unit because you can do damage without even attacking yourself. In PvP, I think it's also really good because once again, you have a skill like this, a leadership skill which can do damage to all enemy at once. So that makes it really good in peak contest when it's 3 versus 3. I mean, this is essentially what makes Jalal so good. And his damage output from his leadership skill, I think is on par with Jalal. I think Jalal at level 1 does like 1% damage. Every single time when he get hit. I don't know how many times like Jalal get hit every single second, but no, I'm gonna assume like maybe 1 hit every second or 2 hit every second. So this is definitely on par with what Jalal is able to offer. So I definitely think this is a pretty good leadership skill for peak contest. The other thing I really like about Jose in PvP potentially is the fact that he would never waste his skill 4. And by that, what I mean is that normally one of the worst thing you that can happen in PvP is that you if that because you are controlled by bots, right? So you can't control when you actually use a skill. So let's say if the enemy is already really low on HP and you use your ultimate attack, you're skillful on them, and you happen to kill them off, you kind of feel like pretty bad because you feel like you can potentially already kill off that enemy with like a normal attack or with one of the weaker skill, so you don't have to waste your skillful. But with Jose, that's never going to happen because even if you kill off the enemy early with your damage over time, what's going to happen is just Jose is going to run towards the second enemy. The energy ball with the Dark Sphere is going to follow, and it will just end up hitting the second enemy onwards. So you will never really waste any extra damage from his skill 4. So I do feel like this is really nice as well. So yeah, so overall I do feel like Jose is possibly one of the most busted unit purely because of his skillful, and that alone by itself I think is going to be good enough for you to summon on. The only consideration I may have, and possibly going to be a problem for you guys as well, it's more because he's of darkness typing, and to be honest, there are already quite a few really good dark characters. There's like Jalil, there's Midnight, um, we even have the Mirror Gem Festival banner on right now, right? So there are actually loads of really good dark characters. There's also Cobra and Mystical who are very solid as well. So there's a high chance you may have already invested in quite a few dark characters, and then that kind of means whether it's still worth going after Jose as could be a tricky question.